Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Hopefully this is working. Somebody can just let me know that you can hear me okay. Dum, dum, dum. I never quite know when this starts. I should probably set up some intro music or something like that. I know a few shows have kind of intro music in the meantime whilst people are waiting. Probably be quite a nice thing to do. Maybe I'll do that at some point. But looks like we've got a few people in the chat already, which is cool. All good, says Owen. Fantastic. So regular people may know that I'm in a slightly different location sat here. I'm actually sat in my kitchen this evening. I've had my daughter move back home and take over what was my study is now turned back into a bedroom. So I've kind of commandeered the kitchen for the moment, which means I'm here, so the lighting and acoustics might be a little bit different to normal. Yeah, Andrew, lift music, exactly. Some lift music running might be a good thing. I need to get myself a green screen or do something like that, make it a little bit fancy, kind of level up a little bit on the presenting skills here. Well, hopefully I'll find somewhere a little bit more permanent rather than just taking over the kitchen table. But cool. So who we got here? Owen, a regular face. Peter Schulboom, Andrew Tolleve. Cool. Thank you all for coming. And some new faces, I think. Nahad A, Cryptopolis, Agent Broccolu, and Anthony Griffiths. The fifth for you, yes for motivation. These are all new faces, which is great. Or, well, at least I've been described as having a memory like a dead goldfish. So, yeah, if you're a regular and I've just said you're new, then sorry, I possibly just haven't spotted you, or yeah, just haven't remembered. And anyway, we'll just give a few minutes for some more people to come in before I get going. W. Bullmans, hello, evening, almost missed it. Yes, I've not done a show for a few weeks. I was all ready to get back into it, and then, like I said, daughter moved home, and I had to move out of my study, and so I've put off doing another show until I could get somewhere a bit better set up. But I've now kind of commandeered the kitchen. So what you can't see behind the kitchen is all the plates and dishes, because we've just literally finished dinner and thrown everything over there. So, Brandon L. When Moon. That's one of the things I don't generally talk about in this show, is price. I try and stay away from price. There's so many people that talk about price and what's going on. There's just so much going on in the crypto world, and especially in the XRP world. I try to stick to tech topics and leave that to others, which is probably why I have so few subscribers compared to the others, because I don't, I could come up with some wild theories and add another 1,000 subscribers on, but there we go. Fifth for you. Oh, thank you very much, Matt. I think you're a great person. I don't know how you keep calm with all the trolls and funsters. Neither do I. Patience. But yeah, arguing with somebody on Twitter at the moment about the actual how Bitcoin blockchain calculates the amount of work. But anyway, so okay, we'll catch you later, Stuart. Then, if you have to head off to the gym, that's not a problem. So the plan for this evening, the idea is I'm going to talk a little bit about this xRapid simulator that I wrote. You might have seen. And I'll kind of break the show into two halves. So the first bit is I'll talk about the simulator itself and just kind of running it, why I did it, and what it's about. And then the second half, what I'm going to do is actually look at the code of the simulator itself. A few people have asked, how do you write code to interact with exchanges? How do you write bots? So this is not a bot as such, and maybe I'll cover that in another show, because I run various bots that trade on the XRP ledger. Sort of they automatically run, doing trades continuously. But this is just an example of interacting with the ledger. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'll just talk about why I did it, a little bit about xRapid, a bit about maybe some of the findings from this, and my interpretation of the findings at least. And then, like I said, we'll go into the code, and I'll just give a rundown, just to give a kind of a high-level overview, hopefully for people who, just like I said, I don't want to go too far into the technical details, but I've tried to keep it quite simple so that hopefully everybody can at least learn a little bit from it. Just kind of see what's involved and how you would, you know, how you would interact with an exchange, for example. So, right. So without further ado, so what was this all about then? So this kind of actually started actually from a bit of a spat on Twitter with somebody. So there was a so Mercury FX. Let's bring them up here first. Let's bring Mercury FX up. Mercury, come on, Twitter, Mercury. Why is this not completing? Mercury FX, come on, there we go. So Mercury FX said a while back, let's see if I can find it here. Probably should have brought this up beforehand. Here we go. Here we go. So we've made our largest payments across RippleNet using XRP. 86,633 pesos, 3,521 pounds from the UK to Mexico in seconds. And this is the bit here, the most important bit, I think. The next bit here. UK-based Mustard Foods saved £79 and 31 hours on the transaction. Now that's the holy grail. That is what xRapid is all about. So xRapid, just to recap for people, Ripple make a number of solutions for banks and financial institutes to interact with the XRP ledger and to do international payments. They've got a product called xCurrent that allows basically just payments to go through. It sends the details of the payment but doesn't actually settle anything. So what this means is one bank tells the other, I'm going to pay you some money, and they go, okay, great, well, you've told me you're going to pay the money. At some point later, you have to actually transfer the money. Now, the way this normally happens is you have an account, what's called a Nostro and a Vostro account, and you have an account pre-funded. So you already have an account at the destination with some money set aside, and you say, okay, well, we're just going to give you some of that money that I've set aside there. xRapid allows what Ripple call liquidity on demand, and what it does is it allows FIs and banks to use XRP to very rapidly source liquidity. So what this means is they can say, okay, I want to send some money to the other side of the planet. And so what they do is they buy XRP, they send the XRP, and then they sell the XRP at the other end for the destination fiat and use that there. So the reason for that is that XRP is what's called a counterparty-free asset. If you have some XRP, you can spend it. Nobody can determine it otherwise. You can spend it. Nobody can stop you. If you're using something like fiat, so if you're using US dollars and you're a US bank and you send it to, say, Thailand, and you send some US dollars, you can't physically send those US dollars, those banknotes, and you can't physically send something like gold. It just takes too long, right? So what you do is you effectively send a promissory note, and you say, okay, well, I promise to pay you. It's a credit. It's a liability. It's an IOU, and that's what you send. So in order to do that, first of all, the other bank's got to trust you. They've got to trust that you're good for the IOU, which means you have to have contracts set in place. You have to have, some sort of track record. You're not just going to set up some, accept an IOU from some random fly-by-night bank that you've never heard of. You're going to want to do a certain amount of due diligence, have a certain amount of money held in reserve. So maybe they do physically transfer some money ahead of time, and you basically park that in and have that ready to go sort of as needed. But the whole point being is that requires pre-funding. That requires you to have established all this in advance. XRP means you can do it dynamically. So you can send something of value, XRP, instantly. Now, it could be XRP, it could be Bitcoin, it could be Ethereum. All of these are digital assets that have what we perceive to be a value. And that value is because they're traded on the open market. You could say, okay, one XRP, is worth whatever 32 cents. And we can all agree on that, because if I give you one XRP for 32 cents, you can sell it for 32 cents on the market, because you can look on the market and there's people willing to buy it for 32 cents. So we can agree that that's what it's worth. And that's, that's great. So you can use that. Now, the reason why XRP is so good compared to, say, Bitcoin or Ethereum is because it's much faster. It takes 3 seconds rather than an hour to send a transaction. Okay. So, let's just look at just catch up on the chat here. Is this chat working? Yes, it's working. Hopefully, evening all great. Okay, so hopefully that's a bit of a recap about xRapid. And this company here, Mercury FX, said they saved their customer, a company called Mustard Foods, £79 and 31 hours on the transaction, right? Because normally these transactions, if going by the traditional routes via SWIFT, can take a number of days, especially at the weekend, because the banks don't process it the weekend, and so it can take even longer. And somebody on Twitter I ended up in a bit of an argument with, and they said, well, there's no way that figure, £79, is real. There's no way they could have saved £79. That's ridiculous, because you're going to have to take those pounds, you're going to buy XRP, and in the process of buying XRP, there's going to be a fee. There's going to be what's called the spread, which is the difference between what somebody's willing to buy and what somebody's willing to sell. There'll be what's called slippage, which is related to if you try and place a large order, you end up dropping down the order books and having to pay more. And they said it's just not going to work. So I thought it. I think it will work. Ripple think it will work, but let's test this. I thought, how could I test this? And so I thought, well, I know I can write a small little script that can look at a number of exchanges and actually look at the order books. So just to recap here, this is one exchange, for example. This is Bitstamp. And if we look down here, these are the order books here, the bids and the asks. So what this is what somebody is willing to pay for XRP and what somebody's willing to buy for. So at the moment, it's moving pretty quickly here. Somebody's willing to pay 0.32092 cents to buy XRP, and they're willing to sell it at 0.3. Well, this is moving here, 0.32052. So they want a bit more to buy it, and they'll sell it for a bit less, right? This is you might have seen this if you go into, at least here in the UK, if you go into the post office or a bureau de change or somewhere like that to change some money. So you're going on holiday, you walk into the bureau de change, and you'll see a board that says, we buy euros for, or we sell euros for. And quite often there's two prices. That's because they will buy it at one price and they'll sell it at another price. And that's how they make their money, because that's what's called the spread, the difference between the buy and the ask price. So here we go. This is the order book. So this is what people are willing to actually buy and sell for. So there's somebody here right now. Well, if we look here, this is the cumulative amount here. So what this means is that I could buy 2.5, if I got this right, 2.5 million XRP, and I would pay 0.33999 cents per XRP for that. And it gives you an idea of how much there is in the market, how much people are willing to sell. And this is important, because if you want to buy XRP or Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever, if you want to buy it, you need somebody who's willing to sell it. If nobody's willing to sell it, you can't buy it. Conversely, if you want to sell it, if nobody's willing to buy it, you're not going to be able to sell it. And that's where the price comes from, because it goes down to the basics of supply and demand. There's lots of people willing to buy it, then you can probably sell it for quite a good price because there's competition to buy it. If there's lots of people willing to sell it, you can probably buy it at a bit of a lower price. So, so this is an order book. This is an exchange Bitstamp, and this is the order book here. I've got another exchange here, Bitso, formatted slightly differently, but there is the same thing here. Actually, I could probably switch to English here. There we go. Buy orders and sell orders. Here's the order books here. So you can see here that there's somebody willing to sell 392. So looking here, 392 XRP for 6.04 pesos per XRP for a total value of 2,370 pesos, right? And you know, if you want to buy more, you'd end up paying more for it. As you can see, there's a lot willing to buy at the moment here than there is willing to sell. So you know, if that will affect the price. That kind of puts a kind of pressure on the price one direction or the other, and affects how the prices move over time. So xRapid, just to reiterate, I can't remember if it's shown on here. No, they don't show it on here. xRapid, the fiat gets sent from the bank account, from the financial institution. So in this case here of Mercury FX. So Mercury FX or Mustard Foods, I'm not sure whether it will be the FI or the client themselves. The money will be sent from their bank account to an exchange. At that exchange, local exchange, XRP will be bought. It'll then be transmitted to the other side of the planet to where they want it to go. XRP is then sold for the local currency, so in this case pesos, and then transmitted locally to the local bank account. Now the reason for this is that in a lot of cases it's cheap and quick to do domestic transfers. It's slow and expensive to do international ones. So we're skipping out the middle bit. Now actually this was a very similar model that happened with phone calls. So especially if you are based in the US, then you will be familiar with having a local phone operator and then a national phone operator, or possibly an international one as well. And local phone calls were cheap. In the US, they were free. In many cases, local phone calls were free. So if you were calling down the street or calling within your same town, the call was free. If you called long distance, then it went via, you got a separate bill. You actually had two bills, often a local one and a national one. And the long distance call would be expensive. When the internet started to come out, people thought, well, we could use the internet for that middle bit. And that's what they did. So what happened was you would make a local phone call into a system that would pick up the call and then route the call over the internet to the destination. Then it would hop out and it would do another local hop there. And people started doing that for international calls. And you might remember, I mean, it's I guess not so popular now, but you used to get these international calling cards, those prepaid cards. I don't know if you remember those. You used to call a certain number first and then put in a code, and then you would put in the actual telephone number you wanted to dial, and it would route it, and what was called LCR, lowest cost routing. And so they did a very similar thing. So this is a model that's been used in other industries. It's been used in the telecom industry for a while now. And so now the idea is to do the same with money. You make a local transfer, then the international transfer happens in this case over XRP, and then you do the local transfer at the other end. So yes, so I wrote something to test this and see how it will work. So let's just dive straight into that, shall we? I will demonstrate it. So I wrote the code. I'm going to go into this later. The code's actually up on a site called GitHub that allows people to share the code, and there's instructions there for installing it and running it. And if you've got a macOS or Windows or Unix computer, Python will run on all of them. Python's kind of a general purpose programming language, and you'd be able to get this up and running and test out locally. And a few people have commented on Twitter that they've done that and been playing around with it. So let's have a play here. Let's look at an example. So let me just make sure you can see the screen here. I think you can. Bum, bum, bum. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Back again. There. So what this thing allows me to do is, for example here, I can run this and I can say, I I can run it and I give it various parameters. So I say 4,000, so that's what I want to start with. 4,000 US dollars on Bittrex and send it to Bitso and into MXN. So Bittrex and Bitso are two exchanges, and I want to go from US dollars on one to MXN on the other. And if I run that, what that will do, it'll show you what it's doing as it outputs it. There we go. So, first of all, it got the order book for XRP USD on Bittrex. It bought 12,461 XRP at a price of 0.3210 cents on Bittrex. So it was a total of 12,461 XRP. There was a 31 XRP fee. So this is because Bittrex will charge 0.2, 0.3, 0.4%. That's how much we had left, 12,429 XRP. So that 12,429 XRP would be sent from Bittrex to Bitso. Now remember, this is a simulator. We're not actually sending any XRP. We're not actually buying anything. We're just looking at the order books to see what is there and what could I buy and sell right now. So remember, this is looking at real orders, looking at real demand, but we're not actually doing it. We get the order book for XRP MXN for Bitso. Now we have two orders here. We sold the first 3,616 XRP for 6.02 pesos. And then we sold the next lot, the next 8,813 XRP for 6.01 pesos. So you see that second lot there was slightly, we got a little bit less for that when we sold it. And that's because of the amount that's on the order books. Remember, I showed you there's a different levels of order books. And if we actually look, it may have changed it now, but let's quickly look back at Bitso. Because Bitso moves a little slower, we might see on here. So there we go. There was 1,955 available at 602. And here... okay, so that's changed, it looks like. Let me run this again then. Let's see what happens if I run this again. We might see... it sold 3,616 at 602. Oh, that's because there's two lots here. There's two orders here at 602 here. And then the next lot, there was 10 XRP, it sold at 610. Well, you can see there's 10 XRP there at 610. And then the rest of it was sold at 6. And there's a big lot there. There's somebody willing to sell 60,000 XRP, or willing to buy 60,000 XRP off us there. So as you can see, it shows what we bought and what we sold, but it looks at the actual, what's actually on the order books. And again, it takes it. We have the total amount of MXN we ended up there, Mexican pesos, the fee, and then what we finally ended up with. So our 4,000 US dollars got us 74,398 MXN. So let's now, as a comparison, let's see what happens if we did that with TransferWise. So let's try here. So 4,000 US dollars, and sorry, 1 second here. 4,000 US dollars, and we want to go to MXN, Mexican peso, and it tells us we'll get 76,444. So 7644 versus our 74,398. So we're not getting as much as we would do with TransferWise, but let's actually compare the price and see. So TransferWise says actually for this thing, there's only two options that it comes up with. That's TransferWise and PayPal. Now, as you know, PayPal would transfer it much quicker, but what you actually get is a lot less. So 74,425. Again, what do we get? 74,398. So still PayPal, we get slightly better rate on that there, but we have done it instantly. Now, different amounts will get different figures. So let's try, if I try 400, our transfer fee here, we're still getting this transfer fee of $4.99. If I do 400 on hours, let's see what we get here. 7,457, 7,003. So we did better than PayPal at that amount, and that's because PayPal's got a fixed transfer fee. And you'll find that on certain exchanges. I mean, if we try, for instance, let's try euros. So let's say we're going to do, okay, what's done there? 400 euros. So I want to send 400 euros, and it's come back with various options here, various banks here. Banks a lot of people may have heard of, BBVA, Rabobank, CaixaBank. So let's try euros here on our tool. So if I clear the screen and say I want to use, instead of Bittrex, let's use Bitstamp and EUR. So 400 euros from Bitstamp to Bitso MXN. There we go, it's done the same thing. And we end up with 8,424. So let's see here, 8,424. Well, we've beaten BBVA by quite a lot, CaixaBank, Rabobank, and we've almost beaten Sabadell Bank. Not quite, almost there. Again, we've not reached TransferWise, but remember TransferWise, again, if we go here and look at this and say euros, 400 euros, look at this, should arrive by February the 22nd. Well, it's the 18th today, so that's 4 days. So that's saying we could get a better rate, but it's going to take 4 days to get there. We're talking about doing this in a minute. So we're, a much better position here. So, quick look through the chat here. Tom, awesome way to get a better understanding of the markets. Yes, this is why I did this, was to try and get a bit of a feel, because as well, how much could you do? Ivan asked, would be great if the sim automated the TransferWise check. Yeah, I looked. Unfortunately, they don't have an API to check, which is annoying. So I think they've got an API for their price, but I can't get the comparative price from this. I actually tried to set up a international payment via my bank to Mexico just to test it and see what they would say. But unfortunately, I needed the actual proper routing details to see this. But what's great is we can have a play around with this. So we can see, okay, what if I wanted to transfer let's make it even more. 4 million, is that right? Yeah, 4 million euros to MXN. What would happen? So one of the things that people have said is that there's not enough liquidity for xRapid to function yet for very high orders. So let's see what that looks like. If I do that, bum, 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 there we go. So, right. To do that, it had to make so many orders. So we started off buying quite cheaply at 0.2832. By the end of this, we're paying 0.6, right? So we're paying over double the rate, because we're going right the way down the order book, right? And again, similarly for Bitso, we're getting 6.02 pesos for our first lot of XRP. We keep going all the way down. We're only then getting 5.5 pesos for the end. And actually, there's a chance. I'm not sure if there's enough there. There's a chance there we might not have even made it there. So we got a net total of 6,600,000 pesos. That doesn't sound right. I think we even ran out of liquidity in total there on Bitso. So that kind of demonstrates you're not going to be doing a 4 million euro transfer via xRapid right now. It's just there's not enough liquidity there. But that 4,000 worked, 400 worked, 40 worked, 4 would work. This is where it gets interesting, that you could do actually quite small payments in theory. I can send 4 euros and it gets 84 MXN. Now, what would €4 get me here if I compared the price? Here, €4. You send €4. Transfer-wise, we get 60 MXN there. What did we get here? 84. So we're up by here by Sababel that have 0 transfer fee, an exchange rate comparable to ours. But here, transfer-wise, can't match it. Most of these here, well, this has gone. It's cost us more to make the transfer. We've gone into negative here. You know, it's cost us more. BBVA has a €28 transfer fee. So it cost us €28 to send €4. You know, we're going to pay more in fees than we're going to transfer. So this becomes really quite an important thing when you're talking about certain remittance corridors around the world, in which somebody whose, you know, daily wage might be significantly, you know, might be, you know, quite a small figure, and they're trying to send home some of that. You know, if their daily wage is $20 and they're trying to send $10 home, then, you know, $5 home, that's just not possible at the moment. So that's why we end up with this figure at the moment of it's something like the average remittance fee is 7%. You know, Ripple think they can get down to, you know, less than 1%. So, you know, that'd be even better. So let's see here, hidden liquidity. Yeah, okay, I'll go and look that up. There could be other. So at the moment, there's 4 exchanges that Ripple have mentioned: Bitstamp, Bitso, Bittrex, and CoinsPH. But there could be others. There's people coming up. So in Japan, the Japan Bank Consortium are going to hopefully be an xRapid partner. Good morning, Garlinghouse's neighbour. Let's see here. Mio says TransferGo beats everyone with price and speed and runs on Ripple. Yeah, so you know we've got companies already using this as well. So there's I can't remember the name of it. There's a company in Australia that's been using XRP from even before xRapid existed. They kind of wrote their own system there. So Andrew Tolliver says, great stuff. I think xRapid can source from multiple exchanges. Yes, that's what I've heard as well. And it can look and see what the best exchange is. So let's look here. We could do 2. So let's do 2 comparisons here. So I want to send, let's say, €400 from Bitstamp to MXN. That €400, if I use Bitstamp, will get me 8,447. Now, instead of Bitstamp, I could use, say, CEX. Now again, this is what's great with the simulator is I can use exchanges that Ripple don't even use, as long as it's got XRP on there. So CEX, I would get slightly more, 8,489 as opposed to 8,447. So I would possibly go, okay, well CEX is the best one to use right now, and I could use that. You know, again, you know, you could do the similar thing with US dollars. So say US dollars, so Bitso, no, not Bitso, Bittrex. So let's see here, Bittrex, MXN will get me, so $400 will get me 7,480. If I use Bitstamp, I get 7,487. So Bitstamp's better than Bittrex. So again, you know, xRapid, if there's multiple exchanges, could look and see which exchange is the best rate, could combine them and say, okay, we'll buy a bit from here, a bit from there, and then send it on, and do that. What have we got here? The higher the price of 1 XRP, the less XRP it takes for transferring large amounts of US dollars. Exactly, Red 5 Golf Gunny. That is why a lot of people say that the price of XRP has to increase, and that is because, if you want to be transferring large amounts, then that's going to put pressure for the price to increase there in order to do that. Cryptopolis, large orders will jump price massively. Yep, yeah, it will do. Baby Noel, can you increase the price of XRP on the simulation? No, I can't increase the price because it's getting the prices from the actual exchanges. What I can do, though, is the xRapid sim can't use multiple exchanges. Somebody just asked there. This is quite simple, just a quick and dirty script. But interestingly, what I can do is I can say transport equals BTC, and I can pretend instead of using XRP that I want to use Bitcoin. And here we go, it buys, so it's bought 0.1 Bitcoin, and we've done that as well. So now again, the difference being is that Bitcoin is not as fast, but it gives us a chance to play around, and we're using a library here called CCXT, and that has a large number of exchanges that it can interface with. So I can look down here, and because say Bitcoin's on a lot of them. Let's see here, BitHum. I think they're based in Korea. Are they BitHum? What happens if I say BitHum, KRW. So let's send 400 Korean won. Let's see if this works here. I'll just clear the screen. 400 Korean won to MXN. There we go. So that's it says 0.00 here because it's less Bitcoin than it can display. There's not enough decimal places on here to show it, but it shows what would happen. We get 400 Korean won would give you 6 MXN. I could use Ethereum for the same transaction. So instead of 6.84 MXN, I get 6.82. So it's actually better to use Bitcoin in that case. I think BitHum have XRP. If they've got KRW XRP. Yep. So 6.77. So it's been slightly more expensive to use XRP, but of course it'll get there in 3 seconds rather than an hour. So yeah, we can have a you can have a play around and see what's possible, and also envisage what it might be like for exchanges that that Ripple don't currently have a relationship with. There's exchanges there you can pretend that Ripple have some relationship already with them, and test it out, have a play around. So Shane Schofield, interesting to see liquidity problem present in your sim. Really brings the point home why higher price is beneficial. Exactly. It shows what's there. Again, if we're trying to do this transfer here with Korean won, I don't know how many Korean won. I don't know how many's in. What they're worth. Wow, we've got lots of liquidity there for Korean won for XRP, but not so much for MXN. In comparison. If I had an extra 0 on, you kind of see, there we can buy lots of XRP there quite easily on the source exchange. We need to make quite a few sales on destination to get what we need in the end there. But hey, we can do it, And I imagine Korean won to MXN. I've got a feeling if we tried. Let's see here, KRW. I bet that they don't even support that. No, so they don't support that. I can't do that. That's because TransferWise don't have that relationship. TransferWise haven't got a relationship between Korean won and MXN. They don't have two banks there with a relationship set up. Again, the point with xRapid would be you wouldn't necessarily need that relationship, or you wouldn't need as heavy a relationship because you don't have to deal with pre-funding accounts. So you would have a relationship with BitHum at one end and Bitso at the other, and the transaction could go through then. That's why Ripple talk about using this on the more kind of what they call exotic corridors. You're probably not going to use it on US dollars to euros because there's so much going on there that it's a fairly efficient route. So Ashvin says, I tried using CoinSpot and BTC markets as exchanges for AUD on the sim, but it doesn't work. I think CCXT doesn't support them yet. Maybe not. It might not have CoinSpot. It might not have BTC markets. So some of them some of them might not be on there. There's a list here of all the exchanges, and again, it doesn't necessarily support everything on all of the exchanges. So it might be that it doesn't can't work with them all there. So, but there's a fair number to play with. So, Garlinghouse Neighbour says, one of the other issues on smaller exchanges is the large delta between buyers and sellers you see the majority of the time. Yeah, exactly. So, you'll find that they're willing to sell but not willing to buy, or willing to buy and not willing to sell. Again, the more volume. This is the kind of the chicken and egg thing that Ripple have. They need to slowly build this up. So Ashvin asks, imagine if you simulated the time as well. Use BTC as a transport and wait an hour for the program to run, or simulate Swift and wait days. Yeah, exactly. So you could see what the end price was. You could say, okay, this is what the price is now. We're going to start this, and then we're going to see what the price is in an hour's time, or in 4 days' time. How has the price changed in 4 days? People think that XRP, they go, oh, it's really volatile. Well, we're talking 3 seconds here. Whereas if you're doing that exchange to Mexico, so what's the exchange rate in? Let's just quick look here. Where can I find this? 1 USD to MXN. I think I can do this here. Mexican peso, 5 days. Right. So look at the graph over 5 days here. So it's dropped from 19.43 down to 19.25. So that's a reasonable drop in those 4 days. You have that volatility exposure over that time. Look about things what's happening in the UK with Brexit. Our exchange rates going all over the place at the moment. So let's see here. Red 5 Golf Gunny. China was the last major hurdle for Ripple, and the Chinese New Year is still happening. Well, yeah, there's a lot going on there. I think a lot could be happening soon in that area. Any ideas of how prices of XRP between two exchanges is maintained if traffic is generally in one direction, USA to Mexico? So Andrew Tolliver asks. So generally the reverse will happen via market makers. So if it goes in one direction, it will alter the price, and so XRP will become, because of a gluttony of XRP on one side, it will play around with it. Mayo says, surely the price is more important than the speed. I transfer money all the time. I want a better price. Couldn't care less about speed. Always gets there in 1 to 2 days anyway. Potentially. But again, you might not care about speed, but possibly the company that is doing the transfer might care about speed, because they've given you a price and they've got to factor into that price what it's going to be in 2 days' time. Now, if they think the price could drop in 2 days' time and they're going to lose money, then they're going to hedge their bets and build that as a risk factor into the price they give you. That's why they might give you a not such a great price. And also, you might not, speed might not be important to you, but it might be important to a lot of other people. And again, it might not be necessarily you as an end user, but it might be important to the bank that's setting up, because by doing this, they don't have to have these pre-funded accounts. So it means they can set up much quicker. They need to hold less capital. It's easier for them to do it. And as well, think about corporates, large corporates could do this. So I work for a large international IT company with 300, 400,000 people worldwide. They must have a massive treasury department, a huge department, sort of ensuring that payroll each month goes out, and they've got to move money between all the different countries. Because a business unit in one country makes a load of money, but they've got to pay people in another business unit in another country. They're going to have to shift all this about, and doing that, corporate treasury is a massive area. So yeah, not just for public, but for within corporations as well. Think about companies like Amazon. They're hiring for corporate treasury people who understand this. To work within them. So that was the simulator. So what I'm going to do now is just have a quick look at the code, just a quick run through the code, just to kind of show you. So it's uploaded to GitHub. GitHub is a social coding site. It allows you to share code, allows you to collaborate on code on here, and you can see You can see the code here. The main code is in this file called xRapid sim.py. And what we'll do is I'll just have a just sort of a quick run through. So it's using Python. Python is a general purpose programming language. It's used a lot within numerical work, so it's a lot within data science and analytics and finance things as well, because it's very good dealing with numbers. And there's this library CCXT that interacts with all these different exchanges, 90% of which you will never have even heard of, but all around the world, all these different exchanges. And so it gives a common API. So I can say, get me the order books from this exchange, and I don't have to worry about exactly how that exchange works. It will get it for me. So combining the two in my script, so start off here, import the libraries we're using. So I import CCXT and a library called argparse. So argparse just makes it easier for me to parse the arguments that I pass in at the start. So the source amount, source exchange, source currency, destination exchange, destination currency, and the transport. And it will give me nice little errors if I don't include the right arguments, for example, or enough of the right arguments. It tells me, error, the following arguments are missing destination currency, and it tells me what arguments I need to give it as well. So that just makes that a bit nicer. Again, this was all written fairly quickly, really just to kind of prove a point, so we don't do much error checking. If you give it an exchange it doesn't know, or a currency it doesn't know, or is not supported on that exchange, it will just bail out with an error. But there we go. We parse the arguments that are passed in. That means we can get a hold of them. And then this block here is just pulling them out into local variables just to make it a bit more convenient. So the source exchange, what we actually do here is CCXT is this library, and we create an instance of that source exchange. So if I passed in bitstamp, it asks CCXT, okay, give me an instance of a bitstamp exchange API. So for the source exchange and destination exchange, the source currencies and destination currencies, we just convert them to uppercase just because that's what the library expects. And the transport currency, we convert that to uppercase as well. Remember, we could pass in that we want to use something else. So the transport currency, this is an argument, we default to xRP, so you don't have to specify that, it'll use xRP by default. We work out what the source pair is, so this is the transport and the source currency. So this, for example, will be XRP/US dollars, XRP/MXN, if you're going from US dollars to Mexico. So these are the two pairs that we're going to be using here. We load the markets up from the exchange. So we ask the exchange, okay, give me the markets, and then give me the order books. So in this case, we ask the source exchange to fetch the order book of the source pair. Destination exchange fetch the order book of the destination pair. So we've got them all convenient now. And now we're trying to work out how much XRP we can buy for our money. So we start off, we've got 0 to start with. We bought 0 XRP. The amount of money we've got to spend is here, this source amount. And we loop through the asks. So remember I said there's the asks and the bids. So what we're doing is we're looking through and seeing, okay, we want to buy XRP, so what are people willing to sell it at? So this is what's called the asks side of the order book. And we get the price and we get the amount. So they'll be willing to sell a certain amount at a certain price. And the amount we actually use of our funds to buy is the minimum of the source amount. So if we said we wanted to buy and we had 4,000 US dollars that we wanted to send, then it'd be the minimum of 4,000 compared to the amount times the price. So if somebody is willing to only sell 10 XRP for 30 cents, then that means there's only $3 worth there. So we could only spend $3 of our $4,000 in here. We work out how much we bought. We add it to our total. We take away from our source how much we've used. So each time, this is a loop, by the way, just so you know in Python, this is a loop that we're going through here. We print out how much we've bought. And if our source amount is 0. It shouldn't ever be less than 0. But if it's less or equal to 0, then we break out of this loop. So what we're doing is we're going around the loop. We're working our way down the order book, basically saying, okay, we'll buy some of that, we'll buy some of that, we'll buy some of that, until we've spent all of the money that we had to buy. Right? And we calculate the fee. So here in this case, there's within the markets, there's what's called the taker fee. So this is the fee. Exchanges sometimes charge a different amount for whether you are taking an order off the order book, so whether you're putting one order on what's called a taker or maker fee. And we multiply that by the total amount of XRP bought. And then we print out how much we bought, what our fee is. We subtract the fee from the total XRP we've bought, and we print out the net amount we've got left. We nicely then just print a couple of blank line. We print to the screen how much we've bought and how much we're sending. And then we do the opposite on the next exchange, right? So how much XRP we have to sell is the total amount we bought. The destination amount, we've got 0, so we haven't sold any yet. And we loop through the other side of the order book, the bids, and we go through that. Sorry, 1 second here. And we go through that, and we work out how much we sold. So again, it could be the minimum of the amount to sell and the amount. We work out the destination amount. We add what we have to the destination amount. We subtract the XRP we sold from how much we have to sell. Print out how much we sold. If we've run out of XRP to sell, then we exit the loop. So we've sold all our XRP. We work out the fee. In this case, I was using Bitso, and Bitso annoyingly doesn't actually have the fees in the API. So what I do is I try and get the fee. If I can't get the fee, I use the value 0.65%, which is what Bitso charge. So if somebody's tried this with different exchanges and it bailed out, that could be related to that. But basically, this is just hard-coded fudge because Bitso don't have the fee in there. So if the exchange doesn't have the fee, we assume it's 0.65%, which is actually really quite high. Most exchanges are around about 0.25% or so. So BitTrue in Singapore is 0.1%, I think, or 0.05%. So, and then we print out the final amount. We got there and what we finally end up with. So that's it. 94 lines of code, including the comments, to do that. And that then loops through. So let's see here. Mio asks, are you shilling XRP with your IBM workmates then? Occasionally over lunch, but I work for a different part of IBM than related to any of their blockchain or financial stuff. So it's not related to my day job at all. This stuff is just a personal side project. The two are separate. Jason Lee says, speed is critical with any other process. Once a bottleneck is broken open, possibilities are endless. Exactly, equivalent to Henry Ford instituting the assembly line process. Exactly, there's things you just you can't do right now because you can't transfer money fast enough. And if you could transfer it quick enough, then you could do all sorts of things. You could get a loan for 1 hour or 1 minute. If you were trying to bridge some deal or something and you needed the funds, you could get a loan for a really short amount of time because you can transfer it. Tom Kussner asks, Baltazar and Vita Wind created webhooks. Where would those be used for? Would those be useful for your sim? No, they wouldn't. So what those webhooks are a way in which you can define something that will be run when a particular action happens. And so what those webhooks do is when a transaction hits a particular wallet, it will then call something. So those are useful for if you're waiting for payment and you want to see a payment has come in. So maybe you're doing some point of sale system or some e-commerce system and you want to know that somebody has paid so you can actually release the goods. That's when your thoughts are. Lakeside Crypto asks, what are your thoughts on Stellar and WorldWire? as far as I can see, WorldWire is solving a slightly different problem. So they're dealing with sort of finance and credit for goods and services rather than general finance, as far as I see. It's certainly interesting. IBM obviously have a long history and big partnerships with banks. I think Ripple are more focused in exactly what they're doing here. So, you know, we'll see how they both do. I think they're solving slightly different problems. So, Andrew Tolliver, next week arbitrage bot. Maybe not next week, but sometime soon. I could do. I have written a high-speed arbitrage bot before, and various market making bots and things. So Traffic Cox, you should comment it out to high heaven. Well, I thought I put enough comments in. But, you know, if you want to put more in, go ahead. So Ashvin asks, is xRapid based on Interledger or are the two completely separate? The two are completely separate. So Interledger is used by the xCurrent project, and Interledger is a way of just transferring between two ledgers. Although, that said, I suppose you could use Interledger to make the payment from the bank to the exchange. So the exchange could have an Interledger endpoint, and that could be how you actually deposit funds, fiat funds, with the exchange potentially. You know, it might be that when you transfer to the exchange's bank account that it's using Interledger because it's using xCurrent locally, perhaps. So, but they are separate. But Mio, yeah, speed loans. Yeah, you know, imagine, you know, you walk into a car showroom, you got to buy a car, you can get finance, you know, literally instantly. Would be great. Or if you're trying to purchase something, you know, a bit of machinery or something, you could get the loan for it right away. So hopefully that's given people a good idea. I'm coming up to the hour now, so I'm going to start wrapping up. If anybody has any other further questions, then feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, like I said, I'll start you know, wrapping things up. If you have any further questions beyond that, as usual, you can grab me on Twitter at Hamato, or you know, ask me in the comments. Lambo loans, yeah, Ashvin, yeah, great, Lambo loans. So yeah, you can fund your Lambo instantly. Although isn't the point that XRP is meant to be worth so much that you know, you're not getting a loan for it? You're just selling your XRP to buy the Lambo, or buying the Lambo with XRP. Ultimately, there we go. So great. Thanks Shane. You're very welcome. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna hang up now. And like I said, any further comments, then feel free to, or questions, feel free to ask me in the comments, or grab me on Twitter. And please, yeah, if you liked it, like, subscribe, etc., etc. If you subscribe, I always try and put the videos up as a scheduled event. So if you do subscribe and hit the little bell icon, then it should give you notification when the show is going on, and it helpfully works out how long it is until it's going to be shown locally, so I don't have to worry about time zones and try and work out, you know, tell you time zones and that. You can see. And YouTube lift music, yes, Andrew, I will try and get some YouTube lift music on. You know, if you're unlucky, you'll get me warbling at you, or my daughter practicing her cornet instead. But yeah, okay, thanks a lot everybody, and good night, and take care.